All right, everyone. Welcome back to Inspired to Thrive Empowerment Summit with a new expert, of course. Your girl got you. Your girl has you. So I would like to introduce Elsa Moreck. Did I say that right?
You said it right.
All right. No, I like to check those names. Okay, so this beautiful lady is a millennial dating coach. You're welcome. I'm gonna say it again. You're welcome. But I'm gonna throw it over to her so she can introduce herself to you.
Definitely. So interesting, like side story about my last name. It's actually El Muarre because I'm Lebanese. So it's a Middle Eastern last name. But when my dad immigrated to the US, he had it changed to Moreck to make it easier to pronounce.
Ah,
So
okay.
yeah, so I'm Lebanese, but no one ever knows that I'm Lebanese because they're like, your last name is not Middle Eastern. So it's actually, if we were going by the books, it would be Elsa Le Muarre.
Ooh,
But
that sounds beautiful.
I know, but instead it's Elsa Moreck, and I'm here for it. But yeah.
Her too.
But yes, a little bit about my background. So I always knew that I wanted to be a coach of sorts. When I graduated university, I was kind of looking at two paths. I was like, either I will become a therapist or I hadn't been introduced to coaching yet. So I was like between being a therapist or being a journalist. I was really interested in both worlds. And it just like one thing kind of led to the other. I ended up studying marketing and psychology, which has nothing to do with therapy, but well, psychology does. But my parents were very traditional, and my mom is a doctor, my dad's an engineer, my sister's an engineer, and I think that they were trying to steer me into something similar. And I was just like, that's just not me. Like, I want to do therapy. I want to do this. I want to do that. And they were really against it. And we just kept butting heads about it. So I was like, fine, I'll do it your way. I'll study business. And then I did business with a focus of marketing and psychology. I ended up falling in love with psychology. Marketing was cool too, but marketing, when I studied it in college, which was in 2014, was a totally different ball game. Like, there wasn't really social media yet, and it was just a totally different thing. So I really enjoyed the psychology aspect. And then upon graduating, a friend of mine planted a seed in my head about coaching. He was like, I totally see you being a life coach. Have you ever thought about that? Like, my sister-in-law does that. She's really successful. It's life therapy. So I started looking into it, and I was like, what is this life coaching stuff? And the more I dug into it, the more I was like, that's exactly what I want to do. Like, I want to help people not just gain awareness, but I also want them to take action. And I want to hold them accountable for it, because I am pretty good at that. I hold all my friends accountable, and I hold myself accountable really well. So I started that. And then as I was getting my certification as a life coach, the area of my life that, like, aside of coaching, the only other area that was really important to me was my dating life. And a lot of that came from like me getting close to my 30s and having all this pressure about like being married before I was 30. And especially like in Lebanese culture, like there is a lot of pressure to do things a certain way. And now that I work with clients from everywhere, I'm seeing that it's not just Lebanese culture, it's a lot of cultures.
Very true, very true.
Yes. Like you kind of at some level define yourself by like being in a good relationship, and being in a relationship that's like has a label on it. So as I was getting my certification, I started paying attention to that part of my life. And at the time, I had just gone through a breakup with a guy who was not accepting of my path as a content creator. He was kind of jealous and possessive, and he was like, I don't like that you're all out there on the internet. Like, it's just too much for me, this and that. And I found myself almost choosing him over my career. And a lot of that came from like that pressure, like, oh, but if I choose him, like, he'll marry me because, you know, he has this traditional mindset, and like, he's an entrepreneur, and like, he'll take care of me. And I was starting to like get sucked into this like rabbit hole of just very traditional thinking that is clearly not who I am. But luckily that didn't work out. And I went full force into my coaching. Luckily, yeah. Seriously, full force into my coaching. And I just fell in love with working with women And at first it was more like life coaching than dating coaching,
Mhm.
but they just kept coming back for help in that area. And I was already blogging about dating and relationships for a long time, just to kind of understand my journey out loud. And I found that so many people were drawn to it and they wanted to learn from me. So I was like, okay, I'm seeing signs from the universe that maybe I should really niche in that area and focus on dating. And then I discovered some interesting statistics, like millennials are the loneliest generation.
Yep.
And I think it's 46% of millennial women are more afraid of ending up alone than they are being diagnosed with breast cancer.
Oh, whoa. I did
Yeah.
not know that.
And then when I started to like make this decision, like, should I switch into dating coaching? Literally everywhere I go, there's a conversation about it. At the cafe, at the gym, at the yoga studio. That's what people talk about because that's what a lot of people are struggling with.
Mhm.
So I was like, I think that this is actually my calling. So I started sharing. I didn't really know where it would go. And then I just kept getting so much feedback from people, like, your content is so on point. You're speaking to my soul. And then I was just like, this is it. Like, this is going to be my purpose. And it's been really rewarding. Like, it comes really naturally to me. And relationships are just such a big part of life. And there's actually a study conducted by Harvard. It took over 80 years to complete, but they were able to prove that the number one correlation with living a longer life is meaningful relationships.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And I definitely agree with that. I 100% agree with that indeed. Um, First off, I want to say that I know how hard it kind of gets when your family wants you to choose this pattern. So kudos the hell to you for like standing up for yourself and taking initiative and like following your kind of path, and what lights you up, as well as choosing yourself. Because I know getting in the mentality of like, this is what society norms is. Like, I need to be in this relationship. I need to get married. I need to start my family. Um, it's so easy to get like just in it, and you do it just because. So also another kudos to you for just standing up for yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah. And oh my God, I'm so excited to dive into today. I'm so excited to dive in today. So what she mentioned before we started this lovely recording for y'all was she wanted to talk about swiping in this era. How did you put it? Yes.
Dating in the swiping era.
Yes. And I was like, yes, we need to just jump into that. So let's get into it.
Oh my God. Okay. So like, I really do feel like my journey to become a dating coach, you know how it's like life puts pebbles on your path that kind of lead you in a certain direction. And when you decide to take a turn, life's like, no, go back. That's your path. Like, that's been my life story for a very long time. And the reason why dating just makes so much sense for me is because, again, I've been blogging about this for years. And one of my biggest struggles as a millennial was making peace between the dissonance that I had with what my parents were telling me and with what reality was showing me. Because on one hand, I'm like, okay, mom, I agree with some of what you're saying. Like, she'd be like, dating is so complicated nowadays. You guys like have a bazillion options. Like, it was not like that for me and your dad. And she was like, I met your dad and I was really satisfied because it just like, there wasn't so many options to be paralyzed by. And they by no means have a perfect marriage, but there is something refreshing about how simple it used to be, or at least that's what I used to tell myself. I have a very different perspective now after, honing my dating life and helping other people. But at the time I was like, there is something to what you're saying. Like, it is so simple. And it was kind of like, guy meets girl, whatever. Back then, my sister's gay and I'm bi, but for the sake of back then mentality, it was like guy meets girl, they get married, boom. It was easy. And so like, I was just finding so much dissonance because that's not how my dating life was. My dating life was like, oh, okay, well, I have this guy. We're not really like, I guess like we're kind of in a situationship, but like, there's also this other guy in my DMs who's not bad. And then there's like this other guy that I met recently. He added me on Facebook. I'm sure that means something. And it's just like, it's such a mind fuck. And there's, oh wait, there's also like this guy on Bumble that I have a conversation open with. And which for me isn't very accurate because I never really use dating apps that much, but still it was like, you have all these options from all these different sources and you're trying to make sense of it all. And it's confusing. And so like, sometimes I would kind of get envious of how simple it used to be when my parents got married. And so dating in the swiping era for me, just based on a lot of conversations that I have with people, it's frustrating because there's paradox of choice. It's already been proven that when you have more choices, you're less satisfied with the choice that you make.
Yeah.
So that's just like everyone's reality right now. And on the other hand of that, it's scary because you could get into a relationship and like there could be no label on it and that's okay. Like that's society, that's just like accepted now. And I think that that's really like hard for people because there's not the security that there used to be. Like usually it was like, okay, if you've been dating for a while, like you just assume that like the next step is like engagement and then marriage. And now it's like, oh, I don't know what we are. Like we're just in a situationship.
And that so, like 10 years long. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So yeah, I think that this is a very interesting time to date, for lack of a better word. And I think it can be very confusing.
I agree. And then kind of going back to whenever you have something you're like there's just so many options. It's like always having dangling fruit in front of you. And you're just like, yep. What about this? But what about this? Instead of just being content with yourself. And I also feel like it kind of makes you second guess yourself or like even the relationship, because there's just like so much out there as well, which in turn doesn't allow you to like really fully dive into it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh man. I have one friend, bless her heart. She is like, I want to meet someone in real life. I don't like these dating apps. Like she is so old school to the point. And I'm just like, so with that said, stating that, so how would you kind of comfort someone that, I mean, we are in the swiping era. So like, how would you comfort someone that's just like so set in their ways to kind of find someone real life, kind of move into being okay with like finding someone online?
I would remind them that a dating app is just a tool. Mm-hmm. That's it. It's just like, if we were at a party and I thought that like, hey, Melissa, like you should meet that guy. I think that you might like him. The dating app is doing the same thing. All it's doing is introducing you, like
you put that.
Yeah. And then if you see that guy and you're like, no, not my thing. Okay. Swipe left. I'm interested. I'll have a conversation with him. Cool. Swipe right. Like that's all it is. It's just a medium that's connecting you to people in your vicinity. And it's just an algorithm. Like we make it such a big deal, but it's just an introduction app. It's just introducing you to people. From then on, like it's up to you. If you feel someone out, something that I help clients do is screen really well. I think it's really important for people to screen because we live in an era where there's so many options. You have to screen your options to make sure that you're not paralyzing yourself with all the choices. And then after you've like weeded the people out, you just go out and you see what happens. But essentially it's just an introduction app. That's it.
Okay. I really like the way that you put that.
Yeah.
I feel like it kind of like relaxes you to like see it in a different view instead of like this kind of scary process of having someone on the other side. So that was beautifully said, beautifully said. And then with like dating and the dating apps, obviously it's so easy just to kind of keep swiping, but say that you do find someone that you're interested in. Do you have recommendations on like how to start the conversation? Or like, I guess, do you feel like you should bring more energy when you start the conversation or just kind of be more minimal?
I think it depends. Both approaches work. Like if you notice something about someone's profile that makes them stand out, like if they're clearly in Amsterdam, for example, you could start a conversation about that. Like if you've been to Amsterdam and you already know you have that one thing in common it's a nice way to cut through the noise and be like, hey, that's really cool that like I've been to Amsterdam. It kind of reminded me of Austin. What do you think? I like having like, I like relating things to people's profiles because it's personable and you're interested in more than just how they look. You're showing them that like, hey, I went through your profile. That's cool. But if it is very minimal and you keep it sweet and simple, that's not terrible either.
Okay.
Like, because the goal of the app is to build rapport so that you can get off the app. So however you build rapport, whether it's being creative and saying something personable or whether it's being minimal, as long as you're not saying hey or hi or hello, which is just so lame and like
so basic. Yeah.
so basic, then I think you're okay.
Okay. And then kind of say that you do start a conversation and you're flowing. Do you ever like give your clients like, okay, like maybe after like a week or a couple days, like try to get off the app?
Oh
yeah.
I think a week is too long.
Okay.
Yeah. I think if time is precious
Mm-hmm.
and if like you're going to invest in a conversation for a week, that's a long time. And it's not even guaranteed because again, it's just an introduction app.
Mm-hmm.
So like you might meet them in real life and there's just no chemistry. So like spending a week, like investing in that person, it doesn't have to be a waste. They could end up being a friend, but you wouldn't spend that long getting to know a friend over text that you just met. So my recommendation is like anywhere between 48 to 72 hours max.
Okay.
Like 3 days tops, like you should have something set up.
Okay. That's good. That is good. Because I feel like sometimes prior to meeting my boyfriend, like conversations just like dwell on, and then you're just like, do I really want to meet this person? And you just kind of just like give up, you know? So that's good. It's like, just make a decision. It's like taking it back to like, you just need to make a decision. So that's good. Definitely good. And then with your clients, do you have anyone or like, have you worked with anyone that really has a genuine resistance to using apps and is still prefer to like meet people in real life reality? I don't know.
Oh yeah. Most of the women that I work with don't use apps.
Okay.
Like they're over it. And
Yeah.
they got to me at the point that they were like, fuck this, I'm over it.
Okay.
So yeah, so I would say most women I work with aren't on apps. But there's so many ways to meet people.
Please tell, because I feel like a lot of people don't know where to even start with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've lived in a lot of places. I was born in the US in Indianapolis, and then my family and I we moved to Georgia shortly after. And then from Columbus, Georgia, we moved to Lebanon, which is where I'm originally from. I'm Lebanese. And then from Lebanon, we moved to Japan.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I was in Japan from the age of 11 all the way up to 17.
Okay. I think we lost you for a little bit. I think your video is frozen.
Froze for a second.
Oh, there we go.
I think we froze for a second. I'll just repeat what I was saying.
Okay, perfect.
I was saying, I've lived in a lot of places. I've lived in 4 major cities, Beirut, Tokyo, Amsterdam, and now Austin. And I moved around a lot because of my parents' jobs when I was younger. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because every single country that I've been in, like people experience the same struggles in their dating life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which goes to show that it's not really about the location. Location's definitely part of it, but that's not really the main thing. It's about you and what you're attracting. Wherever you are in the world, you'll attract what you are.
Okay.
So I believe that if you really want to meet people to potentially date, first of all, you have to be open to it.
Yes.
You really have to be open to it. And I say that because I think a lot of people have been scarred and they've been really hurt before and their trust has been damaged. So they think that they're open to dating, but actually there's so many walls and they're looking so hard for something to just discount someone that they're not actually as open as they think they are. And that when you're in that like conflicted place, it shows up in your energy and you're not as open to life. You're not attracting as many people in. Now, when you do make yourself open to meeting people in your day-to-day life, you have to accept that not everyone you meet is going to be, they're not going to be quality. Not everyone you meet is going to be able to fit your criteria of an ideal partner. But you won't know that unless you open yourself up to meeting a lot of people. And how do you go about doing that? My first thing is set the intent. Set the intent. Like if you're going to like a meetup, like a community meetup, which I think are awesome ways to meet people, whether it's like a workout meetup or whether it's like a workshop or a networking event, set the intent to meet at least 3 new people. They don't even have to be people that you're interested in, just 3 new people. And then hold yourself accountable to it. Because it's really easy to be like, oh, like, no. And then social anxiety kind of seeps in, and then you're like, you try to let yourself off the hook. But if you really set the intent and you're like, I'm going to walk away with 3 new names in my phone. If you get in the habit of doing that, you will land dates with people who you've kind of already pre-screened.
Okay.
And you can do that. One of the things that I would say is also have open body language. So like, you know, if you're standing like this in the corner or you're on your phone, you're not really inviting anyone to come talk to you. But if your posture is good and you're open and you're smiling and you're making eye contact, you're going to attract people to come talk to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I dig that. No, I definitely dig that. Damn good tips. And then I wanted to kind of question you on some of the things that you dropped in that. So first off, when you say criteria, do you feel like it's very beneficial to kind of make that list, and how deep to go into that?
I think it's extremely beneficial. You need to know your values. Criteria is not green eyes and at least 6 feet. That's not criteria. A lot of women think it is.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends are like, he has to be at least 6 feet. And I'm like, okay. That's like, when you fall in love with someone, that's not what's going to matter to you.
Yeah.
And that's not really like, obviously it's important to focus on physicality because that's part of attraction and that's part of chemistry. But when I say criteria, I mean values. You need to know what your values are. What are you okay with and what are you not okay with? Once you know your values and once you put them down on paper, you'll know whether someone has a bunch of red flags around them or a bunch of yellow flags.
Okay.
Yellow flags we might be able to work with. Red flags, probably not. So I think it's really important to have that.
Okay. And then with the yellow and red flags, what would you say are like 2 red flags to kind of like keep an eye out for?
So red flags are going to be different for every single person. Like what I might find as a red flag for another woman, that might be like, okay, we can work through that. Okay. But for me, a red flag would be an addiction of any sorts, financial instability. That's just a personal red flag. Someone else might be tolerant to that.
Okay.
But those are 2 things that if I saw them, I'd be like, I know this isn't going to work.
Okay. No, those are good. And I think it gives you the chance to really just dive down and acknowledge what you are looking for so that you are able to open up and attract that individual, as well as not just like kind of taking anyone, you know, because it might end up in a way that you probably already knew it was going to end up, you know, because you didn't set that intention and those values. So yes, girl, yes.
Yeah, girl, discernment is so important. And it's something I think a lot of women struggle with.
Agreed. I feel like just kind of getting in that atonement with yourself, as well as like being aware of the worth and what you deserve and things like that. Yes, and yes. And then kind of still going back into that last conversation that we kind of talked about was, if an individual kind of has baggage from a relationship, do you have like 1 or 2 tips to kind of help release that so that it doesn't kind of roll over into the next relationship or block them from getting in that next relationship?
That's an excellent question. So definitely, if you are still healing from a previous relationship, or if you haven't healed, because a lot of times what happens, especially with girls, and I've definitely been guilty of this, is you bridge one relationship to the other. You're just crossing a bridge and you're not taking any time in between to just take a break and figure out what it is that you want. So if you find yourself having that pattern of like going from one pair of arms to the next without any reflection in between, I would definitely recommend taking time to yourself, at least a month or two of just like pure self-reflection. You can still meet people and you can still like go on dates, but try to really preserve that oneness with yourself and really figure out like, what are my patterns? What have I noticed about these last 2 or 3 relationships? How did they start? How did they end? What were the conflicts in between? How did I contribute to those conflicts? Get really curious about the patterns that you've had before you enter something new. Okay. And then the second part of that is definitely choose yourself and your life without a partner. So choose yourself and your vision for your life first.
Okay.
Because when you choose that and you're very clear about what that looks like, you'll attract a partner who fits into that perfectly.
Okay. I dig that. I love that. I feel, and I've met a lot of females that kind of just get lost in their partner. And then when they lose that partner, it's like, what the hell do I do? But I feel like just taking the time to get to know yourself and work for yourself, it's like you're already in this steady foundation that if something does happen, you know, you're ready. It's like you have you, and that's what you genuinely need. So yes, yes, and yes. Oh, dating sounds exciting now.
I know. Dating is super fun. Dating is really, really, really fun. And that's why I love what I do, because people are struggling. And when they come to me, I'm like, girl, we're going to have fun. Like, it does not need to be a struggle. It should be an adventure.
Yeah, it definitely should be an adventure. I agree with that. So then saying that, like, kind of getting into that zone of being fun, would you, like an individual that's going on a date for the first time, just meeting someone maybe off the app or meeting someone that they networked with, what tips would you give them? Just like kind of starting in the moment or just being there?
I would say be present. Be very present and be open to whatever ends up happening. Like, that's just mindset strategy for before you even arrive to the date. Mm-hmm. Be really open. Don't have any attachment to what the outcomes end up being. Mm-hmm. That person might end up never becoming something romantic, but they might end up being a great contact. They might end up being like a business partner down the line. So be open and be very present, because when you're stuck in your head and you're like, I don't know if I sound stupid with what I'm saying right now. I don't know, I shouldn't have worn this shirt. Like, it makes me look kind of weird. Like, my hair's probably frizzy. Like, when you're in your head, you're not going to be able to form a genuine connection. So just be fully present. And when you are present, you become more confident because you listen better, and then you're able to make relevant jokes, and you're able to be witty, and you're able to feel free. But in order to have all of that, you have to be fully present with that other person.
True. Yes. I feel like in this day and age, being present is just like, it's a workout in its own self, but you can be present. And I think the more people acknowledge that, just kind of being present in all aspects of your life. Mm-hmm. Even beginning this week, it was more of like, I literally wrote down in my journal, I want to be more present when I like interact with my mom this week, like, just, you know, because it's like, I know I need to be more present, and it's just like becoming aware of it. And it's beautiful. And just like, even after I did that and checked in with it, I was just like, that was amazing. I want to do this more. So yeah.
And that means no phone on the table, mm-hmm. even if it's face down. If you show up and you see that there is potential with this person, for the love of God, keep your phone completely out of the way. Even if you decide you're not interested, to form a genuine connection with someone, you have to have your phone off the table, put away. Like, that takes away from presence. I think it was a talk by Simon Sinek. He says it's so funny how like people will have like their phones face down on a table as if to say like, oh, I'm not paying attention to that right now. Yeah. But that's still a signal that like at any moment your conversation will be shoved to the side and I'm just going to pick up my phone. So definitely, like, a tip would be to not have your phone anywhere on the table.
I 100% agree with that. And I feel like it also is very nice not having your phone like when you're in the presence of another human. Yeah, definitely. Definitely agree with that. So, dude, oh my God, I was gonna call you dude. Sorry, but I was like,
You call me dude.
dude.
I'll go
All
for
right.
it.
Well, these tips have been so amazing. I know that they're going to be so beneficial to so many people that kind of jump into this summit. And then always to just allow people to know where they can find you and what you do. So if someone wants to work with you, what programs do you offer?
So at the moment, I work with clients privately. I do private coaching, and it's a 3-month program. It's a very juicy program filled with everything from A to Z when it comes to not only dating strategy, but also raising your self-awareness. Because my goal with every client that I work with is to help them raise their self-awareness. That way they can take responsibility for who they're attracting, why they're attracting them, and what they can do differently. Because my goal when our time ends and we part ways is for them to have an inner compass that is automatically going to know, like, da, 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 like that guy is not for me. There are so many alarms going off. Like, I'm not even going to go in that direction. Or, I could maybe work with this. I really want them to have an inner compass that they can trust, because half of dating for me is collecting a bunch of prospects, or collecting, viable prospects, screening, and then selecting. And especially for women, because we ultimately do end up selecting who we go out with. Men don't have that much of that. Men don't have that same privilege. Women, it still is that we select our partners, and we still have that power. So for me, it's about helping them raise their self-awareness. That way they know what they're doing and they can take personal responsibility for it. So I work with them on a 3-month basis. And there's always the option to keep working with me if it feels like there's more goals that need to be taken care of, or some women like to spend more time on certain parts of my program, and then they want to just take it slower. And I'm also kicking off a group program in January, so more to come on that.
Okay, awesome. And then as you kind of went through that, it literally sounds amazing, and I feel like the fundamentals of your program are like stellar, freaking awesome. And then what you touched on in there, as you're dating, do you feel like you should kind of date one person at a time, like, or do you feel like you should maybe kind of get out there and date like 1 or 2 people, 3 people? Like, what's your take on that?
So honestly, I think it depends on the person.
Okay.
Like, I never impose. For me personally, I am comfortable dating several people at a time and then deciding.
Okay.
And usually when I say several, it's like 2 people at the most. Okay. But I personally like to meet different people, and I don't like to limit myself at first. I like to really get to know them, and then I like to screen them a little better, and then I like to select my partner. But for every single person, it's different. I have clients that are like, I can't do that. Like, I only need to be seeing one person at a time. And that's perfectly fine, because more important to me is everything else they're doing, whether it's with one person or with 2 people. It's about their confidence, how they're communicating, their body language, their attachment style, and their self-awareness. And whether they practice all of that with 1 person or 2 people or 3 people, it doesn't matter. As long as you're conscious of what you're attracting and you have some other tools in your toolbox, then you'll make the right choice.
Okay. I dig it. Oh, I've loved this. Thank you so much for all the insight. And then where can they find you if they want to just like start kind of stalking you as people do online?
Definitely. Yes. Instagram is where I share a lot of my juicy dating content and a lot of tips and hacks and stories and all that great stuff. And then my website, elsamoreck.com. Okay. So Instagram and my website will probably be the hottest spots to stalk me.
And of course, I will give all of her links to you guys. You know I got you. And then to end it off, I always ask this question. So within the dating realm, what piece of advice would you give to a female to just empower her to get the hell in it and just go with it?
I would tell her to love yourself first, love the living shit out of yourself. um, know your values.
Mhm.
Very, very, very important. And then get out there.
Yes.
Out
Okay.
there.
All right.
Yeah.
So you guys need to get out there and find this girl. Get out there and find this girl. Thank you so much for spending time with us. I truly, truly appreciate you and what you do. And I'm so happy that you decided to follow your path instead of your parents' path.
Oh, girl, I'm very happy about it too.
And yeah, so thank you. And, I'll be back with another expert. So thank you guys for tuning in and see y'all soon.